Hey everyone, welcome to Office Hours with Cloud Posse, your weekly dose of insider DevOps trends, AWS news, and Terraform insights, all sourced from our sweetops community, plus a live Q&A that you can't find anywhere else. It's October 11th, 2023. I'm Eric Osterman, and I'll be your host. Real quick, I'm the founder and CEO of Cloud Posse. We're a DevOps accelerator for startups that helps teams who are overwhelmed with AWS. We do this by using our 200 plus AWS Terraform modules that have been battle tested and downloaded over 10 million times. No matter where you find yourself on this journey, we're here to help your startup build a reliable, modern, scalable infrastructure, transform ClickOps into a well-oiled DevOps machine, and leverage our open source Terraform blueprints for a rock-solid infrastructure. The result, you get better products, up faster, we free up your bandwidth for innovation and nail your value delivery every time. And if you or your team has been banging your head against the wall with underperforming infrastructure, just head over to cloudposse.com/quiz, answer a few quick questions, and we'll chart a roadmap for your success for free. Worst case, you get a clear roadmap for shoring up your infrastructure. Best case, we co-build it with you and empower your DevOps team in 90 days or less. So how do you maximize today's session? First off, our format is very informal. Engage as much as you'd like, ask questions. And if you're curious about any of our open source tools or modules, go for it. For those on the recording, we host these calls live, so don't miss out. Go to cloudposse.com/officehours to register and get an invitation. Now, I have one ask. If you find any portion of our office hours valuable, share it with your team. Just head over to youtube.com/cloudposse. Again, youtube.com/cloudposse. Remember, we're not simply creating content here. We're building a community. So let's get started with some announcements. First, saw through Anton's newsletter. First, a new organization. It's an interesting strategy AWS is taking. I guess, when you have GitHub, GitHub Enterprise, but Cloud Edition, you can have ultimately a parent enterprise org with lots of other organizations. I'm guessing that's what they're doing because there are so many of these AWS orgs popping up now for specific kind of slices of their open source or things that they're publishing. So you have AWS Labs, you have AWS IA, which is their infrastructure automation, and now AWS Observability. Interesting is that they have a Terraform AWS Observability Accelerator module here, or set of modules rather, for bringing up the architecture that they have described here. Also interesting that for this, they're using Managed Prometheus, in addition to perhaps, did I see? Yeah, minor integration here with CloudWatch. But otherwise, it seemed to be using lots of other non-CloudWatch services, which I thought was interesting. Some exciting DOS attacks been happening. Was it last month? But the reports of them are coming out now, like the retro on what went wrong or what happened. Both Google and Cloudflare took this opportunity. 90% marketing, 10% technical details of what happened. Needless to say, they were able to thwart the attacks that were generating 398 million requests per second. But keep in mind, this is not like connections or sockets. This was over HTTP 2 and was doing connection, and then immediate reset instructions. So just very efficient request abort, request abort, request abort. And the size of the botnet was apparently very small relative to other attacks that both providers have seen. Only about 20,000 nodes were involved in the attack, generating 398 million requests a second. Anyways, it spawned new technology and by Cloudflare, at least, to address these kinds of attacks. And apparently the providers were all working together with AWS as well to actually submit, was it improvements HTTP2 to mitigate this in the future? But
that seems, if there's only 20,000 nodes, if my math is right, isn't that 20,000 requests per second per node?
Yeah, I guess these were high
That
performance
seems
nodes.
crazy. Yeah. Like
But keep in mind, it's
wonder
just the
what
request.
stack
There's
would-
almost no data that needs to be transferred between them. But yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what kind of TCP stack like that they have on that box.
Yeah.
That they must be pretty big, like that can actually handle that.
Yeah. Anyone have more insights on this attack they're willing to share?
You can tune your own TCP stack so that it has a timeout of a second, right? The default TCP timeout on most things is 60 seconds left over from the 60s or whenever they created it. So
Yeah.
yeah, like it's pretty awful way of getting out of service. And also every time they spin up one of these connections over SSL, there's a little bit of compute that happens just to make sure that, hey, yeah, this is a good handshake. So
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like even if you tune it though, a timeout of 1 second, you still are requesting 20,000 per second. I started trying to do the math. Like it's got to be something pretty well tuned in order to be able to do that, or a pretty large box that like has good hardware, like acceleration to be able to do that on the networking layer.
they could be launching them all and then just resetting their TCP or their networking service.
Yeah.
What's interesting is they don't make any mention in either post if the attack was over SSL, TLS, or just plain HTTP. Like, well, is HTTP2 necessarily encrypted? Or is it plain text as well?
So HTTP2, it doesn't require it in the spec, but there are a lot of things that basically the assumption is that like all of the browsers that support it usually require SSL these days and everything. This is something that you'll run into with setting up like ALBs and everything, where if you set it up to use HTTP2, it requires you doing HTTPS for that.
Interesting. Thanks for that insight. Next announcement, just a minor one. As I was looking at some other things, this popped up. So there's a PR pending for adding OpenTofu to Homebrew. And it'll be interesting to see when that merges. I was hoping somebody could fill me in here. This was a pretty draconian measure that GitHub took by treating now node options as a restricted environment variable. Previously, I think most of them are just related to anything GitHub prefixed are restricted environment variables, but now they've actually gone the extent of making node underscore options for Node.js a restricted variable. They have to set explicitly in your workflow, I believe, using the GitHub env variable that you append to. Someone more familiar with this know what is so dangerous with node options and why they took this drastic measure?
You can go for it. No, okay, please.
Well, I'm just venturing a guess here that I mean, GitHub env, you can rewrite information back to the summary page. And if you have something in your node options that is a secret or API key or something like that, then you might expose it that way. That's my first thought about it.
Yeah, what I was going to say is node options can actually do things like tweaking the size of the heap and playing with the garbage collection pieces of node and doing all those things. So maybe there's some sort of vulnerability they detected as a, if you can't, if you could somehow inject that into the into the code or that's running, like, so they're basically making it so you have to like specifically set it in the in the actual GitHub action itself.
Or is this why GitHub actions have been down so much lately? Somebody has just been opening pull requests across the board with 10 gigs of RAM node option settings or something. So it's DOS attacking GitHub, the platform itself.
And I know one of the other things you can do inside node options is pass the like the CA chain to it as well. So you can make things believe that that they're making secure connections to other things if you sign them with a certificate and then pass the root CA chain like to the node, to node options. So I'm guessing it's some sort of a security thing, either with the memory of the underlying things or the security bundle, like the certificate bundle, basically, that you can pass to it. But I'm just venturing a guess. They don't really say what it is.
Does this mean if your example, Eric, where you add more memory using the node, using that node options command, does this mean we can't do that anymore, or is there a CLI command to add in that?
Oh, you can still use node options, but you have to declare it through the GitHub M variable instead of explicitly setting, like in the env section of your action, you used to be able to set node options. Now you can no longer set node options in the env section. Instead, you need to write the out node, echo what you want for node options to the GitHub M file.
Okay, sorry. I think I misunderstood your comment to a, hey, we can't do, like, we can't do that anymore, but reading it, obviously, you can.
Yeah. So what they prevent it from being a first class environment variable, which is just interesting to me. I want to understand the backstory, because it's not, I mean, where does it stop? There are 1,000, like we learned that, Gauntlet has some dangerous environment variables that you can use as well. And where does it stop? I'm guessing because Node has such a massive, adoption, that this is why they're doing it at that level. I'm just waiting for them to say, soon. The env section is now deprecated. You got to echo everything to this. I don't know. There were a lot of nice little convenience things that were in GitHub Actions, but we can't have nice things because everything's vulnerable. So like set outputs was pretty nice when they had that. Set path was nice when they had that. But those things have been deprecated due to, I guess, some injection attacks that they opened up. All right, next one. I haven't looked too deeply into this one. It was posted in the random channel. I guess there's another Linux root exploit related to how libc libraries, dynamic libraries, are loaded. That if something has a set UID bit, you could gain root privileges. And it affects all major releases, so pretty serious. This one here, I hadn't seen this announcement. This came out actually in August. I was just looking at the HashiCorp blog. But Terraform Cloud now supports ephemeral workspaces. This was one of those claim to fames of N0, one of the tacos. They had this, for as long as the platform's kind of been around. Now Terraform Cloud has that similar functionality. This is kind of nice because you can now ensure that a workspace automatically gets decommissioned. So if you're using Terraform for like testing or dev environments or things like that, you can set an expiration date on them. Presumably that's possible also through the provider. And last one here. I know there are a lot of enterprise customers that are going to be happy about this, with the exception that they wish it was starting at an older version of Kubernetes than 1.23. But starting with 1.23, Amazon will provide up to 26 months of extended support. However, after the first 12 months, you're going to be ponying up extra cash to do that. Right now, it's going to continue to be the same cost as the control plane is, but they're implying that after the preview, there will likely be an additional fee for that. Somebody was posting on Reddit that Azure does this, and they charge 60 cents an hour or something for the extended support. Guess when you're cornered, you're cornered. Vlad just shared an announcement. What is this one, Vlad?
Which one? Oh, yeah, this is HashiConf. HashiConf is happening right now, and they just announced a bunch of things. If you
Oh, okay.
all the Terraform announcements, sorry, I think are the first in here.
Wow, this is kind of funny. Yeah, it is. Wow. Yeah, I went to HashiConf last year, and yeah, it was around this time too. I just totally spaced that that's happening right now, and it's so. I mean, I kind of feel bad though for HashiCorp, in this sense, like how did this hasn't hit my radar in any way that HashiConf is happening right now. So thanks for posting it. But what are some of the highlights that you saw here, Vlad?
I am reading through them now. I pasted the link to the Terraform one. They basically added, hold on, boring module tests, which is going to be interesting, and stacks. So the stacks one is interesting. Let me scroll through it.
Interesting.
Gonna have
And
dependencies.
I wonder what this. I wonder what their definition of stacks is now.
They have more details if you scroll, like this is the list and they go, yeah, no, click on the new Terraform testing and UX features, tutorial error and cost. And they go in a bit of detail here. I expect the videos to be on YouTube sometime. I'm just reading through this, like this just came on my feed, so no idea.
Vindicated, Matt Calhoun.
Stupid.
Sorry, we have kind of an inside joke, and I spent 2 seconds looking at this, but you know, Cloud Posse has been calling our root modules components. We comprise components together in a stack. It kind of feels like HashiCorp is like we might have actually been able to influence the trajectory there a little bit.
Although,
but they're saying modules, so maybe they're
Yeah.
dynamically creating a root module.
They
I
also
think-
add the language of deployment further down there.
Mhm.
I'm curious what they're getting the patents for.
Say that one more time. I missed you.
It
They-
says the asterisk there that they're getting a patent for it. I'm curious
Oh.
what part of it is novel.
Boy, they're getting aggressive. Well, fortunately, our reference and usage of components and stacks has been out there for some time.
Yeah. We should challenge their patent application.
Yeah. Phenomenal. All right. Yeah. What? Anything else interesting?
So, that diagram. Scroll up to that diagram. That's showing it. Oh, down. Sorry, down. Yeah, there, right there. So that's actually showing that those things are the components. The collection of all of those is a stack, and then you can deploy the stack to multiple environments.
That makes sense. Okay.
Right there, stacks
Yeah.
eliminate the need to manually manage cross-configuration dependencies and duplicated. I can't read because you have that user success manager thing there. Yeah, there we go. And duplicated configurations.
Mhm.
Interesting. So some sort of like catalog based configuration, and then you can.
Don't give them any ideas. I don't want them to steal more terminology.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
know. It looks very similar there, but it's interesting though. The part that I find interesting is what it just said on the top about module dependencies and ordering and all of that. Like they actually said,
Mhm.
even before that, it actually said like in stacks right there, like the definition of stacks. Yeah, there he goes. It says then you can, by doing this, you'll understand stacks is a new approach that help automate and optimize the coordination, deployment, and lifecycle management of interdependent configurations. No. So I'm assuming this is some sort of like ordered ordered apply,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah. I think
step that will now be built into the actual a la, you know, a la like some other tools that have that in there. Like TerraGrunt has that built in as an example.
Hmm.
So it's interesting.
Well,
All right.
the roadmap session happened about an hour and 20 minutes ago, apparently, or it started 1:30 p.m. Eastern Time, October 11th. And I'm interested to see where GitOps goes into this because I have not seen much of a mention of version control.
This would all be within
Yeah, this is
Terraform
not,
Cloud.
yeah, this is not at all in the Terraform CLI. Presumably, you know, it would be defined within the resources they can be managed with Terraform for Terraform Cloud. Yeah, so Michael Jenkins says CloudFormation uses stacks. A lot of, I mean, so Spacelift has the concept of stacks. For them, it's a stack is a root module invocation. Stacks is used all over the place.
Pulumi does too.
Pulumi uses stacks, yeah. I think, does Pulumi use the terminology component as well?
No, they call it a program, I think.
Okay. But yeah. Cool. Anything else on this before we move on? I see some other things. Come up.
Just quickly following up, I was reading the pull request for that change to node options in the background, and it said that as part of their bug bounty, they got several reports of remote code execution vulnerabilities with directly setting node options. So that's why it is no longer able to be set the way that it was previously.
Interesting.
Wow.
Well, thanks for looking that up.
Yeah, not a problem.
Red Hat retires mailing lists, leaving Linux loyalists to read between the lines. Wow, mailing lists and Red Hat goes back to their origin story almost. So that's a pretty significant move. What's this register one here, Alex? Oh, same one. No. Microsoft gives unexpected tutorial on how to install Linux. What was this about, Alex?
Just that. It's Microsoft explaining how to install Linux. They're the best.
Yeah. Matt Gowie, are you on the line today? Yeah, he's not here today.
I was going to say that I know someone who, when there was the whole DOJ possibility that they were going to split Microsoft, like Microsoft server side and application side, into two different businesses because of the antitrust thing. I know someone who worked on Microsoft Office for Linux and said that it was like, oh, they had a working version and everything else. And then when the ruling came in their favor, they decided to shelf the product and not actually ever release it. So, so it's pretty, you know, the Microsoft, I'm sure, is well aware of like how to do a lot of things on Linux. not just build desktop applications, but I'm sure like a lot of Azure, I'm sure, does not run on Windows on the back end. Like, and they're pretty well versed on a lot of it.
That'd be really interesting. I'd like to understand kind of what kind of a footprint Linux has in the control plane of Azure and core systems and services there.
Yeah, good luck getting that answer.
All right. Yeah. And Vlad shared earlier that AWS also came out with a post related to the DDoS situation. And what they saw CloudFront hit 155 million requests per second with this attack. And found that CloudFront had automatically mitigated it.
They must be
There's
running
a pretty
WAF.
fascinating talk from Reinforce, I think, from this year, where they go in more detail about how they do tracking of new attacks and how they automatically block like IPs and automatically email other providers. They give a shout out specifically to DigitalOcean for being an awesome partner. Like AWS detects that DigitalOcean droplet is part of a botnet or doing attacks or whatever, automatically emails DigitalOcean, and DigitalOcean figures out what happened. Like a client got compromised, an account got hacked, whatever. It was a fascinating talk. I can't find the link now.
That would
Oh,
be
I think it's this one, to learn about like the last sentence in there, maybe. Like that title sounds familiar, but nah, it's not that. I don't know. But yeah, CloudFront and WAF do have some fascinating automated mitigations in place, and they do publicly talk about them a bit.
Cool. Any other topics, or should we jump into Q&A? Any other announcements?
Just, it's interesting from the HashiCorp blog. I just pulled out a one paragraph quote that I just put in the chat. If you read that, that's an interesting one.
Yeah. Terraform community has built several excellent testing tools, but they often use full programming languages such as Ruby or Go. For a while, we wanted to bring native testing to Terraform using HashiCorp configuration language, HCL, removing the need for context switching or additional learning. But the community didn't give anything back.
that was my commentary, like with their whole quote, like that the community just stole all of HashiCorp's IP basically, and took and didn't give anything back. And my point is like, obviously there's another example of what the community gave, like excellent testing tools because they were missing from your product that you built. So many examples of that.
All right, let's do Q&A. Any questions lined up for today?
I don't have a question per se, but I just wanted to share one thing that I'm working with, putting a link in the chat here for OrbStack. I don't know if anybody else is frustrated with Docker Desktop and the way that it works, but I just started using OrbStack this week as a drop-in replacement for Docker Desktop, and it's for me, it's killing the game because it pulls together a lot of tools that I might normally install, and I can have it in one stack. So it gives me local Docker, it gives me VMs. I would normally use VirtualBox and perhaps Vagrant to manage that. And it also gives me a Kubernetes stack. And it's all in one particular application. The really cool thing about it that I like for containers and for VMs is that it gives you a locally sourced DNS. So you could spin something up, like spin up a VM, run a web service on that VM, and it gives you a local URL to it, like ubuntu.org.local or something like that. And you can get to that web service straight away. So yeah, for me, it's killing the game. I'm really enjoying using it for the past like week or so. And I was just wondering if anybody else was using it, if they had any thoughts or anything, or maybe something that I'm missing that I could get even more out of this thing.
I've been using it, and a bunch of other folks that I'm in contact with have been using it. It's awesome. Like, it is way faster than Docker and way smoother and uses way resources.
I can agree or testify to both of those statements.
It was a bit concerning until a month ago when they released version 1, because it was unclear like what pricing they were gonna do and what their business model is. But I think a month ago they finally went GA, released V1, and released this pricing, which, yay, like they have a business plan, legit, looking forward to it. It still comes with some risk, like it's I think, one person developing it, and that's it.
Really?
But it's amazing. It works. It's more or less a drop-in replacement. So yeah, it's great. Highly recommended.
I'd be really curious to kick the tires on the on volume mounts on Mac OS in particular, because that's been my slowest experience with Docker so far, or running
Well,
Docker desktop.
Yeah, Matt, I will say I am using volume mounts for Docker and for VMs. I haven't run to any particular hitch yet, like no hurdles, no speed bumps, no nothing. It just like works out of the box, which really took me for, a spin as well. I was like, I just had no words. I was just like, wow, it just works, So yeah, another testimony for you.
What does it use to run the containers under the hood?
I have not looked under the hood yet. I've just been too amazed at the glossy exterior to use like open the hood to take a look.
All right.
Quick question, what's the install bundle size? I just realized today as my Mac is running out of space that Docker Desktop takes almost 2 gigs. So maybe this is a cool way to get some free space.
Didn't look at the Docker or the package. I think I did a brew install for it. So if you do a
Okay.
brew info orb stack, it'll probably give you all the information that you need.
Got it. Thanks.
Or you can get one of the new MacBooks that has a 16 terabyte drive available.
16 terabytes max size.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's crazy. I was like, I was just looking at them. Oh my God, like that's a lot of storage.
I guess it's for all the LLMs, so you can download them.
So I noticed like 3 or 4 people have just mentioned they're using Mac here, and then something around volume mounts, and I guess other nuances of like the Mac ecosystem, as well as like hardware limitations of like storage. On my team, we're actually using Codespaces, and we found that to be pretty solid, with the exception, of course, when there's an outage on GitHub. But we are looking at self-hosted Codespaces, which we've been playing around with, where you run it on EC2. And at that point, you basically get the limits of whatever EC2 is, and you don't have to pay the Codespace fees. It's basically, I think they call it Code CLI. And yeah, we haven't made a full cutover yet. We're looking at doing it because Codespaces for anything beyond the base price, the base VM is pretty expensive. So you get to like $3 an hour pretty quickly, versus the equivalent would be like 20 or 30 cents without a savings plan or anything on EC2. And yeah, long story short, just throwing that out there. And not sure if anyone here is using it, but we're a small team. It works out really well. I don't know how it works in a bigger org yet. We have yet to give it to anyone that's got hundreds of devs, but we like it a lot because we can spin up our environment in literally 1 to 2 minutes, resize within 1 to 2 minutes, and I can give my development environment to a new contractor, new employee within 1 to 2 minutes. So it's basically how quickly can they log into GitHub. And with EC2, it'll be a little slower. You get the provisioning time, of course, but I'm making up a number here, probably like no more than 5 minutes. And then when you factor in like day 1 tasks for that new employer contractor, it ends up being, I'm making up a number here, but probably under 15 minutes, get them onboarded to a working dev environment. And then the rest of the time going towards learning the code base. I haven't looked at orb stack, but the one thing I could see being a challenge is running UI-based tools that you like today within a code space, because you're basically running out of a VS Code session with the terminal. So we've definitely had to make some adjustments in our tooling, being only using VS Code. But it also seems like there's a trend going on in the industry that I've seen where Google has their own version, which is a flavor of VS Code. I think they forked VS Code. There's also Coder or Coding Pad, and Cloud9, and
Cloud9, yeah,
JetBrains as well. So it seems like there's a shift headed in that direction. I haven't looked at all those other tools, so I can't speak to whether JetBrains, Gateway, or whatever that tool is called is better or not. But just throwing that out there. I'm not sure if anyone here has checked those tools out, but been using GitHub Codespaces, so not to be a shill, but a huge fan of it.
I didn't realize there was a self-hosted version that was free.
Yeah, we only came across that after I racked up a little bit of a bill. And I'm like, there's got to be a cheaper way to do this. And yeah, so one caveat with the self-hosted is there seems to be some coupling to Azure Cloud, and I haven't figured out what that coupling is. So there's two versions of the self-hosted. There's one from Azure, or sorry, GitHub, and they explicitly say you cannot SaaSify this or make any money off of it.
Right.
So it's something you have to keep purely free. So you can't just resell their offering. And then the second one is someone who forked the open source VS Code and made it easy for you to self-deploy. The authentication method on the code CLI uses your GitHub authentication, which I like a lot. However, the proxy URL and everything uses an Azure type of URL. It seems to be dependent on Microsoft Azure. Hopefully it's multi-region, but who knows? And then the other solution is entirely self-hosted. So that means you have to load up your own SSL certificate, and then they give you like an auth token that you have to manage. So both of them, actually, the second one, the third-party provider, they give you an auth token that you could arguably pass around to your team if you want to share it. You probably shouldn't do that. On the Azure side, it's secured to one GitHub user. So that session can only be accessed by that one user who set it up initially. You can't like pass it around. So it sounds like it's as secure as a GitHub Codespace, which is supposed to be locked down to that one user anyways.
Which way you use the latter?
I'm using the we're looking at using the code CLI from Azure. So we're not, we're gonna create a little bit of an Azure dependency. And then if that blows up in our face, we will migrate to the other option as needed. But we've been using GitHub Codespaces as it is today. It does have its outages. When it's been bad, we've pulled down the dev container and we just built it locally. But that's been pretty rare.
Cool.
Yeah, just another testimony. I enjoy Codespaces quite a bit, particularly when I'm working with somebody else's repo that I forked or I just want to experiment with. I don't want to really commit to cloning it down to my local system, installing all the tools, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just click Codespace. I got my environment up and running. Maybe a make install or, node init, whatever the command is to get up and running. And when I'm done with it, I just ball it up and throw it away. It's like zero commitment. So I like it for that. But I am interested. I also didn't know about the self-hosted option for projects that would be, for me, like more long-term or longer running, maybe a couple of weeks of development or whatever. Yeah, it would be cool to just like have my own cloud-based environment, cheaper fee I could attach to, and it's not on my laptop,
So the
one thing.
Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just gonna to real quick. I'd say the one thing that would be cool is if you could defer to either a cloud runner or a like ECS type environment where you're actually running in a true container disposable environment, maybe with mounted storage, as opposed to running in a VM, which is, a little bit heavier, maybe a little bit more expensive. I don't know. But yeah, it'd be cool if you could do that.
Yeah. Oh, Gitpod. That's a good one, Vlad. I played with them years ago. I think they came out well before GitHub Codespaces, but I never committed to it because I just like that full integration. But with the shoot, I lost my train of thought. There was something you said earlier that triggered something, so I was going to stop talking.
I don't know, containers, local storage, ECS.
Oh yeah. So on the storage side, in Codespaces, it's obviously you get persistent storage there, and then on the the versioning, so when you like do the npm init and everything, we've baked that into our container base image. So on our team, we update all of our Python across the board at the same time. So that's been super helpful. And yeah, we're actually whatever work we're doing for our self-hosted, we plan on just making that into a public repo. So if you guys are interested, I could throw it in one of the channels. Feel free to fork it or make it better, either. But yeah.
So Vlad,
So real fast, you get 60 hours for free. That's all I was gonna say. So you get 60 hours a month for free. So you're not have to actually pay. So depending on those weekend projects, you actually might be able to just do it for free. So hopefully that helps if anyone doesn't want to put the credit card in.
Cool. Michael just shared a long list of alternatives that he's been looking at. Boy, there are a lot. I didn't realize how many of these companies have come out. Vlad, curious to get your insight how you went, because I know you were a big pro CD fan before. Now you're turning against it. What are some of the things that you've seen go wrong?
Yeah, so cloud developer environments were awesome and I love them. But then Apple Silicon came out and a lot of the advantages of the cloud environment went away. Like, oh, I can now do stuff on my laptop and it doesn't overheat anymore. I have a bunch of memory available and stuff. Like the speed improvement went away. So you still have the network improvement because it's running right in the cloud. The dependencies are there, la di da da, but that's usually people don't care that much about latency. You still have the security management control, so forth, but that's a separate discussion. And like, what else? Like the bigger and at the same time, the tooling to install dependencies and do local development evolved a lot. Like you don't have to have a make file anymore. You now have the stuff like, oh my God, you're making me remember names. The thing from Microsoft, dev containers, the dev.yaml thingy that JetBrains does and Code Catalyst does. Like there are now a lot more ways to fix the, oh my God, I have to work on this new repository. Now I have to install 50 different things. I have no idea how to do that. In the past, it was like, awesome. No, JetBrains and AWS and Red Hat and somebody else, they're working on a standard that is an alternative to dev containers. I can find it if you want. But yeah, so like if you wanted to work on a new repo, something that you didn't work with previously, be that an open source thing or something in your company, like you had to do the setup. It was super annoying. Cloud CDs came out. It was click a button, it's done. That now isn't that big of an advantage because you now have this tooling that is run this command and it's all going to be built in a container for you. Doesn't matter. Or you have this script. Like a lot of people have been doing it with Nix OS and stuff like that, but that's not very user friendly. So yeah, like the CDs were awesome, but Apple Silicon came out and a lot of the advantages went away. Like you cannot do multi-monitor with cloud developer environments because they're in the browser. Or you can do it, but you have to do some forwarding and some voodoo and it gets weird and you are limited in IDs and so forth. Like I still like them, don't get me wrong. And there aren't any big issues if you want to adopt them. But the very, very, very strong advantages that they had that made me go like, oh my God, yes, use them. Most of them went away. And now I'm like, it's fine. Like, do whatever you want, but they're not that big of a draw anymore. In my opinion, for the companies that I work with and for my tiny, tiny area. Like your experience may vary, but that's what I'm seeing.
Yeah, thank you. And I would really like to have an example like Michael Jenkins. You were talking about how it's great when you come across a project that has just a code space and makes it real easy to get up and running with it and kick the tires on it. I would like to do something like that for what we do at Cloud Posse.
What would be really cool in that vein, if you could have a, along with your code space, a disposable cloud platform of sorts.
Yeah.
Like, so you can set up the code space and everything, but you still gotta, initialize IAM on the cloud. You got to inject the keys or the OIDC or whatever that abbreviation is for your authentication into the code space. Wouldn't it be cool if you could just spin up a code space, spin up a cloud platform right along with it, and hey, everything works. Maybe you could do that with what's the local one? AWS Stack, or I forget the name of it right off the top of my
Not
head.
too optimistic.
Local Stack. Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe you could do something with
Anything more
local
than a
stack.
hello world, it'll.
Yeah, it'll probably break. But yeah, that would be cool.
You could definitely do some complex automation like that, where you have like organization secrets or code space secrets and inject that stuff in. But then you'd have to build probably that external layer. So it depends on like what kind of DevOps, or I guess DevOps acts in this case you'd want to have. But yeah, it would definitely be a fair commitment. But yeah.
Any other questions we can get to today?
I actually had one on AWS ACM. I was recently doing some stuff with ACM, creating public certs. We've been building some automation for toolchain. And one of the things that I noticed is you have two new options. It's not just RSA 2048, but you have ECDSA P256 and ECDSA P384. And my naive approach would be just choose the strongest one. However, the default option is RSA 2048. So I was just curious to know if anyone here was using the latest and greatest. Supposedly, for what it's worth, I read that they're all compatible by browsers in most cases. But it said the word most, so wasn't willing to double down on that.
I don't know. I was using Terraform to create ACM stuff this week and maybe last week, and I still haven't changed my algorithm yet. I don't, not to say that I don't trust it or anything. I have a ton of certificates that already work correctly and do what I want, and I haven't seen a need, and my security team hasn't come at me saying, hey, we need to change all of these yet. So I guess I'm under the impression that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I could say a very long time ago, maybe several, I mean, what seems like lifetimes ago, I remember bumping certificates at an on-premise system from 1024 to 2048 bit, and it blew up all of our Apache servers. So I don't think that we're as compute constrained as we were in 1999 or whatever it was when we did that. But I would assume that there is some extra compute involved in the crypto operations that have to happen with a bigger or different key size and algorithm. But maybe we're so far past that with compute power that it doesn't matter anymore. I mean, it has been 20 years.
Cool. Appreciate the context on that. I definitely didn't have that prior experience. Kind of what I was looking for here. So thank you.
But I do believe that the RSA certificates, especially as like a 2048, are no longer recommended. I think some platforms aren't even letting you upload those keys anymore. Is it GitHub that doesn't let you upload a RSA key anymore?
I wasn't across that. I'm a little surprised then. If that's the case, then why is it the default when I go to request a certificate?
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, it's definitely been around forever. Also, I'm seeing something here, just Googling quickly. It's saying that NIST has come out and said that 2048 keys shouldn't be used past the year 2030. I don't know if that's means anything either.
So there's a bunch of considerations there. Like, that's all good and fine, but how much stuff out there is outfitted to handle anything past 2048 as a client? So you have to keep in mind, what are your potential clients capable of accepting? So that's
doesn't necessarily have to be a larger key. It can just be a different algorithm that's still more secure, I believe, like the elliptical ones.
Yeah, but again,
whatever it is, the client side, think of not browsers, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Think of some medical device that makes a HTTPS request and has some super old version of OpenSSL or something, right? Who knows?
Yeah, you don't know. So that's all I'm pointing out there.
Yeah,
AWS
I agree.
has a modify certificate function. Also, you can change your default cert that the services will use.
I wonder if there's a way to measure what the client's compatible with without having to roll it out and break things.
OpenSSL client will be able to tell you that.
Oh, but you have to run that as the client, right? You can't, I guess, is there a way that you folks know to like detect the server side as this client supports this particular version?
You'd have to know what the clients were to
Okay.
start with. Yeah, that's why it's a hard question.
All right. Next question.
Even then you kind of have to trust that like the user agent things coming into your access logs are going to be correct. And they're not just going to be like, Chrome something or other, right? Like, how do you know I guess you really do have to understand your business and what your clients actually are and what they're running. And then you have to be able to emulate those, which is unfortunate, but probably table stakes.
Got it. Thanks for all the feedback, everyone.
All right. Next question.
I've got a weird question. Well, maybe not weird, but this requires experience from folks who've been to reInvent. So I will be going to my first one. And I went to the security one earlier this year. And it's orders of magnitude less massive. And I was overwhelmed by it. So any tips on how not to die?
That's a good, timely question. I'm happy to share I mean, there are different people go for different reasons. First of all, one is to go to all the tracks. The other is to maybe meet some of your partners or your vendors that you work with. So some of those are different. My advice, yeah, wear comfortable shoes, like Michael Jenkins says. Definitely bring a backpack or something, because you're gonna get a lot of swag, lots of little things you collect. Backup batteries. My phone always dies. I guess there's charge points everywhere, but then you're stuck sitting there charging. I think to have the most effective time also it's great to reach out to any of the partners or vendors you use. For example, Datadog, if you're a Datadog customer, they're a good one. A lot of them will invite you to some customer events that are pretty nice, and that's a nice way to have a good time at reInvent. There's also a AWS Heroes section, which is nice. You might be able to meet some of the people in the sweetops community, or other people who do a lot, not by AWS, but for AWS. Lots of open source contributors, lots of people doing educational videos on AWS and things like that. I think I like that little corner. Yeah, Jeremy says, expect that you're only going to make it into like 3 talks per day. Oh yeah, you have to pre-register for anything you want to do. Like immediately go register as soon as registration is open. They've been doing things to improve it, often doing multiple versions of multiple enrollments for popular sessions, but you can't guarantee that. So yeah, planning the schedule. They also they take over Vegas. So it's like 7 hotels or something. And, talks are in totally different conference centers. Oh, and yeah, wear warm clothes when you go to the after party, because this is in November and it is freezing cold in the desert for the after party.
These are all great tips. One thing that I noticed at the security one reinforce was that if a session turned out to be not what I was expecting, it was always a little bit awkward to get out of it if you were sat too close to the front and everything. So maybe that's something I'll try to optimize for. Easy exit.
Yeah, sit on the sides. And I mean, people are leaving all the time. Don't be, there's nothing to be ashamed of leaving if it's not what you came there for. Somebody else will sneak in and take your seat if they're standing room only. So that works. Also, I find it, if you do find it interesting, it's great to go up afterwards and talk with the speaker and get some, if you have some specific questions.
Thanks, that's helpful. Thanks, everyone.
All right, well, that takes us to the top, or to the end of our hour here on Office Hours. Thanks everyone for joining us this week. If you haven't registered already for our weekly Office Hours, or if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, go to youtube.com/cloudposse, and you'll find today's video there, as well as our back catalog of all past Office Hours. You can register for our weekly Office Hours by going to cloudposse.com/office hours. Again, cloudposse.com/office hours. You'll get an invitation to our weekly meeting. We also syndicate our podcast or our Office Hours as a podcast. You can get those however you listen to podcasts. Go to podcast.cloudposse.com to find out where. I'm available on LinkedIn. I connect with everyone here in our community. Go to linkedin.com/in/Osterman to connect. And lastly, if you are interested in working with Cloud Posse and seeing if we can move the needle for your organization, helping you adopt Terraform the right way, go to cloudposse.com/quiz. Again, cloudposse.com/quiz to book a session with me directly, and we'll talk through your situation. Have a great rest of your week, everyone. Talk to you next week. Same place, same time.